Currently, North Korea is truly experiencing a great boom. In department stores in the North Korean capital, Pyongyang, foreign luxury brands like Omega and Chanel have appeared, and there are even stores selling IKEA products. According to claims by the Ukrainian military, there are 8,500 North Korean troops deployed in Russia, and they are mainly stationed in the Kursk region of Russia. The Ukrainian Defense Intelligence Agency revealed that among the North Korean troops dispatched, there are 1,000 engineering and dealing personnel, as well as 400 drone operators. It was revealed that a significant number of these drone operators are gaining combat experience by attacking Ukraine during the current North Korean troop deployment. Also, rather than being directly deployed to Ukrainian territory, the North Korean troops are currently assigned to rear stabilization missions, strengthening Russian rear bases so that Russian forces can be deployed to the Ukrainian front. Ukraine estimates that the number of North Korean troops stationed or rotated in Russia reaches about 25,000 to 50,000. On top of that, North Korea continues to supply missiles to Russia. North Korea has provided at least 150 KN-23 or KN-24 missiles to Russia by August 2025, and has agreed to supply an additional 120 missiles. Right now, Ukraine is running short on air defense missiles, so they can't properly intercept ballistic missiles. Because of this, Russia is taking advantage of the situation by getting missiles from North Korea and attacking Ukraine. As of July 2026, it is reported that North Korea possesses about 50 KN-23 series ballistic missiles. In addition, there are ongoing concerns about the possibility of North Korean military support in missile operations. Ukraine believes that a North Korean missile unit of about 90 personnel has started to be deployed in the Voronezh region of western Russia. If the deployment is confirmed, it means that North Korea is not only supplying missiles, but also sending personnel to operate them in Russia. In addition, there are reports that North Korea will send about 50,000 more troops to Ukraine by November, which means a noticeable increase in North Korean military presence. With the increase in troops, the North Korean military will be conducting operations not only in Russia's Kursk region, where they are currently stationed, but also in Bryansk and Belgorod regions. Judging by the current situation, it seems more likely that they will focus on stabilizing the rear rather than actually being deployed to the front lines, allowing Russian troops stationed in the rear to be sent to the front instead. It appears that they are sending troops on a fairly large scale. The problem is that in exchange for selling various military supplies to Russia and dispatching troops, North Korea is receiving massive amounts of food, energy, and capital, leading to an unprecedented period of prosperity for the country. For example, there is currently traffic congestion in Pyongyang. In particular, the scenery in Pyongyang has changed quite a bit compared to before, with colorful high-rise apartment complexes being built along the road from the airport to the city center. Luxury foreign brands are being sold at the Daesung department store in Pyongyang. Of course, even before, North Korea's elite used to buy luxury foreign brands, but in the past 2 years, these products have become much more commonly sold in retail stores. On top of that, there's an IKEA store operating at the Ryugyong Golden Plaza in Pyongyang. Of course, it's not directly run by Sweden's IKEA, but rather, the products are imported illegally and sold there. Rachel Min-Young Lee from the American think tank Stimson Center said that Pyongyang has noticeably become wealthier and transformed into a consumer-oriented city. She also noted that this is evident not only in the increase of high-rise buildings, cars, brightly lit streets, and cultural and leisure facilities, but also increased activity in public spaces. It is clear from various economic indicators that North Korea is currently enjoying significant wartime economic benefits. The Bank of Korea estimated that North Korea's real GDP increased by 3.5% in 2025. It grew by 3.7% in 2024 and by 3.1% in 2023. In contrast, it recorded a negative growth rate in 2022, decreasing by 0.2%. After escaping the economic slump that continued until 2022, North Korea has recorded growth rates in the 3% range for 3 consecutive years since 2023. Especially considering that North Korea's economy struggled with production and trade for a long time due to international sanctions and border controls from COVID-19, the recent growth trend is quite a remarkable change. It's also important to note when the growth trend of North Korea's economy began. In 2022, the economy turned to growth starting in 2023, and the growth rate was maintained in 2024 and 2025 as well. This period coincides with the time when North Korea was rapidly expanding its military cooperation with Russia. North Korea began supplying artillery shells and various military supplies to Russia, and later even dispatched troops, which led to an increase in the scale of economic transactions between the two countries. For North Korea, it means that they secured a new market in Russia even while international sanctions remained in place. In particular, the Institute for National Security Strategy estimated that from August 2023 to December 2025, North Korea secured between $7.7 billion and up to $14.4 billion worth of cash and goods in exchange for dispatching troops to Russia and exporting military supplies. Converted to our currency, that's about 10 trillion to 20 trillion won. This amount includes the economic value of exporting military supplies and dispatching troops. The fact that a country with a relatively small economy like North Korea has received this scale of external resources is quite significant. In a report published this March, the Institute for National Security Strategy found that North Korea's dispatch of troops and export of military supplies served as a key mechanism for overcoming its economic crisis. The resources that North Korea has secured through military cooperation with Russia include not only external support, but also various supplies and economic compensation, which could affect domestic production and consumption as well. As transactions with Russia have expanded, the increase in North Korea's related manufacturing, production, and economic activities centered on the defense industry could be reflected in its recent growth rate. The important point here is not just the fact that North Korea's growth rate has increased, but the background behind that growth. That's because North Korea's economy is not growing due to improvements in its own industrial competitiveness or active investment from the private sector, but rather because Russia's wartime demand and military cooperation are playing a significant role. As the war in Ukraine has dragged on, there has been a need for large amounts of ammunition and military supplies, and North Korea has used its production capacity to supply them. As North Korea's defense industry production has expanded, it's possible that related sectors such as production, transportation, and mining have also been affected. It is worth noting that North Korea's current economic growth is the result of securing a new source of income through military cooperation with Russia, even under international sanctions. The fact that North Korea, which recorded negative growth in 2022, has achieved a growth rate in the 3% range for 3 consecutive years starting in 2023 is a clear change. However, it is necessary to distinguish whether this growth trend is the result of strengthened competitiveness within North Korea's own economy or an external effect caused by Russia's wartime demand. According to the analyses released so far, the evidence increasingly supports the view that military cooperation with Russia has had a significant impact on North Korea's economic recovery. Then, according to the Stimson Center, a US think tank, North Korea's exports to China from January to May 2026 increased by 68% compared to the same period last year. It is reported that the amount of virtual assets stolen by North Korea-linked hackers reached as much as 900 billion won in just the first half of this year. Since China and Russia are openly helping North Korea is showing rapid growth, which is not a very welcome situation for South Korea. Then, what's important is how North Korea will use the vast resources it has secured through military cooperation with Russia. There is a possibility that the North Korean regime could focus the funds and supplies it has secured on improving the productivity of its civilian economy, but judging from the policy direction North Korea has shown so far, it is highly likely that a significant amount of resources will be invested in strengthening its military power, including nuclear weapons and missiles. That's because North Korea's nuclear weapons and missiles are treated as core assets directly linked to the regime's survival. First, we can expect an expansion of North Korea's nuclear weapons production capabilities. North Korea continues to secure nuclear materials and operate related facilities to produce additional nuclear warheads, and it is likely to use resources obtained from outside to maintain and invest in the development and production of nuclear weapons. Especially if North Korea gains more economic leeway through cooperation with Russia, it could become easier than before to secure the resources needed to maintain the personnel, facilities, and equipment required for nuclear weapons production. Currently, according to President Trump's claims, North Korea has about 57 nuclear weapons, while South Korea estimates that the number could be as high as 120. North Korea may try to increase this number further to strengthen its nuclear capabilities. In addition, there is a possibility that production in the field of ballistic missiles could also increase. North Korea has already developed a variety of short-range ballistic missiles and medium-range missiles, and there are suggestions that they may have obtained data on the performance and operation of these missiles as the ones provided to Russia have actually been used on the battlefield. If North Korea uses this data for its own testing and development, it could continue to improve the accuracy and reliability of its missiles. If investment in production facilities is also expanded, the speed of missile production itself could increase as well. Drone capabilities are also an important area. In the war between Russia and Ukraine, drones are being used not only for reconnaissance and attacks, but also to identify targets for artillery and missiles. If the North Korean military accumulates drone operation experience in Russia and brings it back to North Korea, they can use it to expand their existing unmanned aerial vehicle capabilities and develop new operational tactics. If North Korea invests the resources it has secured into drone production facilities, communication systems, electronic warfare equipment, and reconnaissance capabilities, there could be changes in the way the North Korean military operates its unmanned capabilities. If North Korea combines the military technology acquired from Russia with real combat experience gained through overseas deployments, the pace of its military modernization could accelerate compared to before. The larger the scale of troops and weapons that North Korea provides to Russia, the more battlefield experience and technical information it can gain in the process. Therefore, when looking at North Korea's current economic boom, what's important is not just the increase in consumption in Pyongyang. How much of the secured resources are invested in nuclear weapons, missiles, and drones could become an important factor in determining the level of North Korea's military threat in the future.